Welcome to the Safe Space Running Podcast, where our mission is to encourage, enable, and empower with your host, Cris Glover. I am truly pleased to have a good friend of mine who is also not only an amazing athlete, but an amazing friend, Cris Gutierrez. Cris, how are you doing today, my friend?
Doing well. Happy to be here.
Likewise. So glad to have you. For those who aren't aware, Cris has quite a few athletes under his belt. Cris has been an established coach in the Columbus, Ohio area for quite some time. And I wanted to, before we really get into the nitty gritty of, your topic in particular, I wanted to ask you, what is your why? Why did you decide to coach? And what is your motivation behind the athletes that you coach?
Actually, I've been really into just sport for such a long time. I think one thing early on, I was told to just be a student of the sport. And I've been a massive nerd about this for such a long time. And honestly, I think for a long time I think if I didn't have student loans, I probably would have been coaching. It's fascinating to see the development of athletes, and also as it's gone on too in my own journey, to be able to provide them a healthy, but also structured, also just very goals oriented program that allows them to still enjoy this afterward and understand that we're not professional athletes, none of us are, maybe 5 people are getting paid in this sport. So it's really under the understanding of you can still train at a high level and actually have a life. And so as far as coaching wise, I love the sport. And I've had some people that have reached out, and it's okay, let's do it. Let's have some, and to be able to have people that trust in me and trust in my expertise has been a lot of fun, but it's also been a very eye-opening experience from a coaching perspective too, in terms of how I decide to bring in an athlete and who I decide to coach, and even my strengths and my weaknesses.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because I'm going to be honest, I think I told you this before as well. One of the athletes, one of my good friends that you were coaching, I definitely piggybacked off of his plan for quite some time that you had helped and structured. I loved how you had his structure set up for that as well. So that I thought that was, you do know, you know what you're doing, basically put. I wanted to talk with you about the topic of running is simple. And what makes this so funny, now that I'm thinking about it, is that I spoke with Travis as part of this series. And he literally said one of his things that he was passing off to, to new coaches and those who are looking to provide athletes, advice to athletes per se, was to keep it simple. So he set you up for the perfect alley-oop, literally going into this part. So what I wanted to ask you as part of that is, the concept of running is simple. How do you employ that into your coaching methodology and in the approach that you take with the athletes that you have on?
It's a tougher to answer than it is to ask, I guess. So because there's just so much information out there, both positive and also sometimes it's just not adding context to that. I think we look at athletes, especially if you're a newer athlete, you look at athletes that have already been established, and you look at it and say, plug and play, do what they're doing and add it to yourself. And it just doesn't work that way. What a lot of people are neglecting is the years and years of training and a lot of boring miles. And there's a funny thing that I have a group chat with a bunch of friends that have been running for quite a while, and it says, I don't know, man, probably just need to run more. and that's a simple kind of it's very simple in that, but I think it adds a lot of context to that, is that there's a lot of people trying to find that little 1% growth, and in reality they're actually missing the 99%. Optimization is great when you've been doing it for such a long time and you're reaching that plateau. For the majority of people, it's fairly simple. You just have to run more, and you have to just and just do it more. But also, to kind of add a context to that, it doesn't mean you go out and run 90, 100 miles a week like I did this past 2 weeks. It's understanding that you're building this base for yourself to be able to recover off of everything that you do. So the more and more time that you add in and you run more and you do it safely, the emphasis on safely, the better you're able to actually take in the stimulus of workouts, of long runs, of just week to week mileage. But it all just comes back to be able to just the adding of mileage. I think for the vast majority of people, especially now in this generation of new athletes, the focus is fairly simple: is just add mileage and be consistent. And there's a certain point of just being able to just do the action and do the action in a way where you're able to recover off each day. And then you can start adding a little bit more structure. You can add a little bit of more, like, I think I'm not sure if this would be kind of against the grain on that, but I do genuinely think that while workouts are great and they are how you get faster, if you're new, I think there needs to be a certain point where you're able to actually recover from the things that you're doing. So if you're just looking for, like, the unfortunate thing is for the vast majority of people, when you're starting running, it's not going to be sexy. You're not going to get the crazy workouts. You're not going to, for at least if you're running under me, like, you're not going to get crazy workouts. You're not going to be doing these things. Like, I think even my highest performing athlete does not get what I get, because it just doesn't make sense. I think overall you're going to see you see a lot of noise online, and you see a lot of things about, like, here's the secret, or here's, like, how you increase your VO2 max, or crap like that. It's more just like, hey, look at where you're at and what do you need from your journey, and be patient, because also have the context of, like, people are like, there's so much things that you just don't have the context for. Like, you'll see it for me. It's like, well, running's easy for you. I'm like, well, I've been doing this almost 20 years. Like, and it's not easy still. And so, like, when you're new to this, understand that it's going to take some time. And unlike somebody that's in high school that gets it and runs pretty quickly pretty soon after they start, people can come from, like, a non-athletic background. They're sedentary, or they don't walk, or they don't exercise as much, and they're joining running, and so they're on a different path, and that's okay. That's okay. And just being able to understand, like, meet where you're at, and don't necessarily try to compare your growth to others, because others can be coming from an athletic background. Some people are just really, really talented. Like, I've had people that have just joined the sport within 2 years and crushed most of my PRs up until, I guess, just recently. And I'm like, man, 2 years of running and you're running like 220s? That's crazy.
But
the majority of people aren't like that. Yeah. And that's okay.
That makes sense. I love that you used with the running as simple as context. I think that the fact that you tie it to where people should be mapping that simplicity with where their journey is at is really important. I think for both athletes who are looking to get into the sport, but for us as coaches to really take that simplicity, but then make sure that we're not trying to take everything that we see or every new concept, or as sometimes try to make things complicated for no reason, just for the sake of doing it or saying that we did it. I like that part of just making sure it's relative to that person's journey. I think it speaks to your coaching methodology, because I know that you coach each athlete on a one-to-one basis. I don't ever see you do the fact that you talk about what you give your elite athlete is not the same that you do yourself, or other athletes that I've seen you coach have different plans. It shows that you take that same approach of keeping it simple, but relative to that journey. And I think that's the part that really stuck for me, is that contextual simplification is the basis of that. I think there's
really 2 points to that too. Like, one is, as a coach for a while, was really hard to do that, because there's so much info out there, and there's just so much things that, like, people are looking for sexy, and they're looking for the magic bullet, and there's no magic bullet. There isn't, and it's just more time and consistency is really what you're looking for, and that's not exciting. And so and it teaches you how to be able to take the right athletes too. If they're looking for that, you're not going to find it with me. You're going to find it very, very, like, it's going to be the same, very close to the same things every week. Obviously, the workouts are different, but like, you're not going to be running really hard. You're not going to be going to the well. I don't want you to go to the well. Like, I'm going to be probably holding you back more than you've been used to. And it's, and especially I've realized that I'm not very good at working with newer runners, because in reality, it's too much. Sometimes it's too much of a long-term development where they're just not interested. And that's really hard to have that conversation and tell somebody that goal's not realistic right now. Right now, we'll work toward it. And it's like, well, you're just giving me the same things every week. And it's like, well, you're just running right now. I need to have that base before I start layering on like different stimulus, layering on strides, layering on a little bit of fartlek, layering on things like that. Like, I'm not giving you intervals if you've never run more than 20 miles a week. It just doesn't make sense. You're not going to recover from it. And then to that point too, there's some athletes that do have a very similar schedule. Sometimes they have the same workouts in the week, but how I am able to peel that back and say, how did the workout work for you? Or even what paces that I'm looking for, or even do we need to make any adjustments? That goes to the athlete themselves, because there's very similar programs that I do with some athletes, but what I take away from it and how we develop the next week, it can change. Paces can change. Recoveries can change. There's one in particular this year that had a little bit of an injury bug early in the year. And so we went and backed off on the up tempo, and then we picked up the pace on the recovery. Kind of more in the middle ground, just because I wanted to be a little bit safer, but you're still getting anaerobic development. But it's all just little things to that.
I like that. So my last question to you then, in that same space, is that we talked about, any new coaches. The series again is really geared around, of course, new athletes who are trying to get into the space, or potentially new coaches. What would be one piece of advice that you would give to new coaches in particular, or athletes looking to really expand and, maybe even pass off advice to others in that sense, because we all have a different reach to different people. But what would be one suggestion you would give for new coaches and other athletes who are looking to really just spread the word and provide different advice?
My biggest advice to a new coach is not anything related to coaching in itself. It is find out what you want from an athlete. Like, what is your ideal athlete? Because I've had it in the past where I am very open to people that want help. But I've been burned in terms of I've had to baby people to do workouts, or baby people to go and run, or try to motivate them. I've realized that for me personally, I want athletes that are self-motivated. And then more so that I have to kind of pull them back, as opposed to it being motivated. Like, I don't charge that much. So this is more of a passion project. Yeah. And honestly, the charging is more just to keep them accountable, in a lot of cases. But I don't want to be chasing you down to go run your Tuesday run, because that's a waste of my time and it's a waste of your time. So that's my personal experience from that. I would layer that onto a coach and understand that, like, what kind of communication do you want from an athlete? How do you want that communication toward you? So you can actually be the best coach possible, and also set up expectations of how you communicate as well. Because ultimately it is a partnership, and if you cannot work well together, then it doesn't matter how good of a coach you are, it's not going to work. And you just save yourself the frustration from a coaching standpoint of working with somebody that just doesn't work for you. And it's not a knock on the athlete, like, not a knock on any athletes that it just hasn't worked with. It just, sometimes it just doesn't work. And that's work with that particular person. I mean, you see it on the pro level, like, people leave coaches all the time, and that's fine. But it is, from a coaching standpoint, avoid the headache and understand what you're looking for from an athlete, and what kind of, like, temperament, what kind of behavior pattern, what do you want from, like, an ideal athlete, and you'll be better for it yes, you may have less athletes because of it, but in reality, you don't need that many athletes. Like at a certain point, there's diminishing returns of how much you're able to actually benefit the athlete. But that would be my first big thing there. As far as from an athlete standpoint, I would say adopt the attitude of a little bit of a buyer beware. So like the louder they are, the more boisterous they are. I look at that personally as a red flag. The louder and more boisterous coaches, they're typically just talking out of their butt. And there's a lot of, again, everything looks really exciting on Instagram. If they're using buzzwords, particularly for me, if I just hear a lot of VO2 max talk, especially when it comes to like people, like regular people like me and you, like I'm just like, okay, you're just using buzzwords to try to like entice people because zone 2 is in, VO2 max is in, like it's all this kind of like buzzwords are big, and so if you hear people talk about it, it feels like they know what they're talking about, but in reality, like there's just so much other stuff that like you're focusing on little buzzwords where in reality you're missing the entirety of like what's actually important in running, and it really is just honestly just run. But from an athlete standpoint, look at who they've coached, look at how they've developed, look at their roster, like who are they coaching, and are they like you? Because again, a coach might be really good, but it might not be really good for you. And and that's really important. Like I recommended a coach over to my girlfriend because I was like, there's a bunch of athletes that are kind of in that level that you're in. I know they're really good with actually coaching women. I think it'd be a really good fit. It has been a really good fit. And she's loved working with them. I have a couple sub-elite people that I know, and I'm like, I would send them to a couple different places that I know. Like there is a couple athletes, like a couple coaches that I've known, like Dylan Geringer over on the East Coast has been doing really great things with his front runner group. Tyler Morey up in Minnesota has been doing fantastic things. Like both those guys, I'm like, if you're sub-elite looking for something really good, I'm probably sending you that way, but I'm not sending a 3:30 marathoner. Like, well, that might work. I just don't know. I know from my perspective, I know who they coach. I know where the fits are at. I'd send out different people. Just like shoes, I'm not going to recommend what I'm wearing to somebody else. I'm not going to recommend it as a coach. Fair enough. I know the coaches that are in the little niche that I'm looking for. And also they're very open about what they're looking for too. And then there was one last thing that I was going to say on that. Tying back a little bit on that buyer beware thing. Context is really important, and there's plenty of graphics that I've seen that like how I went from a 5-hour marathoner to a 3:15 marathoner. I ran 2:41 for my first marathon, and I've now run 2:19. The context that's missing there is that I didn't really train for that first marathon, and I was kind of out of shape. So like the same thing where it's like somebody ran 5 hours, they weren't doing structured training, they did structured training, around 3:15. Like that growth is misleading, very misleading, and you see a lot of that. You see a lot of misleading stats, which I mean, technically it's true that happened, but like, is it really? It's really misleading. The context is really important there. So like, I'd say really look at. Don't be attracted to things like that with these big jumps, because a lot of that is misleading. And also, I guess to that last point, just because somebody is a BQer, an OTQ, or I guess quote unquote fast, doesn't mean they can coach. I've seen plenty of elite professional athletes that are great coaches. It just doesn't translate well, or even worse, they're basically train their athletes like they were themselves, and that doesn't work. Oh yeah, it worked for me, and that's a lot of things that I see now too, and it kind of goes to basically every level athlete is, well, this works for me, so like I'm just going to do what I did, and I'm going to give you that. I did that early in my coaching career, and it did not work because every athlete's different, and you can't layer something that you're doing as a like at any level. Like if you're a BQ level athlete and you have an athlete that's 50 minutes off the standard, that's new. Like you can't do that. And also just overall, like the more and more you're in it, the more and more context, the more and more just data that you have to work out what works for you, what works for other athletes. Take your time. There's so much information out there, and there's so much valuable information out there, and there's so many different things that may work for different athletes. So like, open your mind to it, and listen to those that have been in the sport for quite a while. Like I have plenty of conversations with Travis on Wednesday mornings before our workouts. Like I've asked him for ideas about things like for one of my athletes is running the 50K World Championships. Like, hey, we've had to adjust. What do I do? Like, do you have any? I have ideas. I want to bounce them off of you. Like, that's great. Like being able to chat with that, especially if you have an athlete you've never had any experience with. Sometimes it's good just being able to bounce that off. Hey, I have an athlete that's like newer, or hey, maybe they are really good at one particular thing. Maybe they're really good at leg speed, and like I'm trying to work out in like aerobic development. Like, what have you done to make that safe and also not lose one part? Like things like that. You can have conversations with coaches about that, and if they're willing to have conversations with, like, most people are very nice about it.
I like that. Well, you've given us a depth of knowledge as I didn't expect anything less from you. So, of course, we appreciate you, Cris, for all that you do. I know, like I said, you coach different athletes, but you also do provide advice and guidance to a lot of other runners. I know that you help a lot with Hoof-Hearted Running over here in Columbus as well. And you've done the elite field for Columbus 10K here for Columbus Running Company. So not only do you coach, actual athletes, you actually coach a lot of athletes who just watch you from afar. And you always had a heart to be a student of the sport and really help educate those around that who come willing to learn. So I appreciate you. I'm sure the Columbus community and communities all around the country appreciate you and what you've contributed to the running space. So thank you for one. And I truly appreciate always talking with you and chatting with you about any and everything. So again, thank you so much.
I appreciate the kind words there. It's fun. The community is great. We're all here out there, man. Like, it doesn't matter how long you've been doing this, how long it takes you to do it. We're all out there. It's like, especially in Ohio, some of these days are really nasty. And like,
ooh.
I got a lot of respect for people that put one foot in front of the other, no matter how long they've been doing it or how long it takes. We're all out here.
I like that. I appreciate you. Again, Cris, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Have a great one.